AITA for visiting an old classmate who seemed in trouble while waiting to pick up my girlfriend. I'm 22, and for the past year, I've been in a serious relationship with my girlfriend, Kara. We met in college, and while we've had our ups and downs, we've always managed to work through things calmly. She's someone I trust and care about deeply. A few weeks ago, something unusual happened that's been bothering me ever since. It started when I saw a comment on a community art page. Someone had posted a photo of a handmade scarf, and the person who replied to it was a girl named Ray, someone I hadn't spoken to in over a year. Ray and I weren't close friends, but we had worked on a school project together once. I remembered her as being very articulate, always thoughtful with her words. But this message, it was jumbled, full of typos, and kind of erratic. At first, I thought maybe it was just a rushed message. But then she sent another and another. The tone felt off, like she wasn't fully present. The more we talked, the more I got a sinking feeling something wasn't right. She wasn't making full sentences, and her thoughts jumped all over the place. I reached out to my friend Jonah, who also knew Ray from university. He agreed something didn't feel right and suggested I keep an eye on it. I didn't want to overstep, but I also didn't want to ignore someone who might be silently asking for help. Later that day, I told Kara. I explained who Ray was, how strange the messages were, and why I felt uneasy. Kara listened patiently, and I could tell she sensed how much it was weighing on me. She helped calm me down and told me it was okay to feel concerned. That meant a lot. The next night, Kara and I were talking about her visit. She lives in a different city now, and we had plans for her to come down for the weekend. We were excited and even got some special chocolates just to make things a bit more romantic. Then, out of the blue, Ray messaged again. This time, she sounded more grounded. Her messages were clearer, like she was coming back to herself. I let Kara know right away, keeping her in the loop. I told her I was thinking of checking in on Ray, just to make sure she was really okay. Kara said she understood, as long as I kept it brief and respectful. She said she trusted me. Originally, I planned to go on a weekday, but my job changed my shift, and the only time I could go was the morning I'd be picking Kara up from the bus station. I figured I'd stop by the mall where Ray said she'd be, check in on her, then head straight to get Kara. I messaged Ray, letting her know, and she opened up a bit more. She told me things at home had been hard, emotionally and even physically. I didn't press her, but what she shared shook me. I wanted to help, but I knew this wasn't something I could fix in one visit. That evening, I told Kara what Ray had said. I didn't want to hide anything. I thought she'd appreciate the honesty. But when I finished talking, Kara went quiet, completely still. After a long pause, she finally looked at me and said, "If you forget about me, I'm going back home." I was stunned. I told her I would never do that and asked where that was coming from. She didn't respond. Something about her silence hit me hard. I realized this visit, however innocent, was hurting her. Even if I had no intention of doing anything wrong, she felt something I hadn't considered. Like maybe I was putting Ray ahead of her. I wasn't, but I understood why it might feel that way. I canceled the visit. I messaged Ray and told her I couldn't make it. She understood. When I told Kara, she said I could have gone if it was truly just for concern, but that it might have changed something between us. That stuck with me. I asked her if she felt like I had broken her trust. She said no, she was just worried for me, especially if Ray's home life was as complicated as it sounded. I tried to reassure her. I told her I wasn't going anywhere, and I meant it. The next morning, out of nowhere, Kara texted me and said I should tell my sister about Ray, that maybe she could help. I said I would, but that my sister had a busy schedule and I might have to wait a bit. Kara then suggested I ask Reddit, even saying I should include the part about the chocolates, how I was supposed to take one before seeing Ray and then later meet up with her. That caught me off guard. I told her no, that wasn't what happened. The chocolates were meant for us, for the night she arrived. Ray had nothing to do with that, but the fact that she brought it up made me realize she doubted my intentions. That hurt, but I tried not to get defensive. I told her I'd post about it if she wanted. I just didn't want this one situation to ruin everything we had. So here I am now, wondering, AITA for even considering going to check on someone who seemed in distress, even if it meant making my partner uncomfortable. I didn't do anything behind Kara's back. I told her everything as it happened. I never planned to stay long or hide it, but maybe I was naive. Maybe I didn't think hard enough about how it would feel to her. I never wanted to make her question my loyalty. I just didn't want to look away from someone who might be silently crying for help. So, was I wrong?
And just when you thought it couldn't get crazier, boom, here comes the update.
After canceling the visit with Ray, I could tell something still lingered between me and Kara. Even though she said she understood, the way she looked at me, it stayed with me. So, a few days later, we sat down and really talked, without distractions or rushed emotions. Kara admitted that what unsettled her wasn't the idea of me helping someone. She said she respected that I cared about others. What made her uneasy was how fast things moved with Ray, from a few messages to a planned meetup, all while she was on her way to visit me. She said it made her feel like she wasn't fully in the picture, even though I had kept her informed. She felt like she was being asked to trust a situation she didn't feel part of. That was hard to hear, but fair. I apologized. Not because I believed I had bad intentions, because I didn't, but because I now understand how it must have looked from her side. I told her I never meant to make her feel secondary, especially during a time that was supposed to be about us. She said she appreciated me listening and not getting defensive. That conversation helped both of us feel more connected again. As for Ray, I messaged her one last time. I told her honestly that I was concerned for her and still hope she finds the support she needs, but that I can't be the one to carry that responsibility. She responded with a simple thank you and said she would consider talking to someone about what she's going through. That gave me some peace. I still care about her well-being, but I know now that helping someone doesn't always mean stepping in personally. Sometimes it's about encouraging them to seek the right kind of help. Moving forward, I've learned that transparency is more than just giving updates. It's also about checking in on how your partner really feels about what's going on, not just assuming everything is okay because nothing was hidden. Kara and I are in a better place now.
You're not the villain here. Your heart's in the right place, wanting to check on someone struggling, and you kept Kara in the loop the whole time, which shows respect. The real hiccup was the timing and how fast things escalated, which made Kara feel sidelined. Relationships thrive on feeling prioritized, especially when plans and emotions collide. You did well by listening, apologizing, and opening space for honest talk. That's maturity, not guilt. So no, you're not the AITA, but this is a classic good intentions meet messy feelings moment. Keep communicating and don't underestimate how timing shapes trust.
Story 2.
AITA for telling my friend she wasn't a parent after her pregnancy loss. My name is Marin. I'm 29 and the mother of a 2-year-old boy named Eli. Life with him is beautiful, but exhausting. My days are a blur of bottle spills, loud cries, early mornings, and late nights. Some days, I barely recognize myself. My hair's always tied up, my clothes never stay clean for long, and I can't remember the last time I slept through the night. It's not that I'm ungrateful. I love Eli more than anything, but raising a toddler is hard. Every single day is full of little sacrifices, and no matter how much love you pour into your child, it never feels like enough. One of my closest friends is Livia. She's 31. We've known each other since college. She's always been the calm, thoughtful one, the one who gives long hugs and remembers birthdays. Earlier this year, Livia got pregnant. She was thrilled. I remember how her eyes lit up when she told me. She had names picked out and nursery colors chosen within a week, but at about 9 weeks, she lost the baby. It broke my heart. I saw how much she was hurting. I tried to be there for her the best I could, brought her soup, checked in every few days, offered to just sit in silence if that's what she needed. She thanked me, but I knew there was a pain I couldn't reach, something only she could carry. As months passed, things slowly returned to something like normal. She went back to work. We started going out for short walks again, but every now and then, something would shift in our conversations. Whenever I talked about Eli, about how tired I was, or how hard it was to even shower some days, Livia would say things like, "I know exactly what you mean. Being a mom is exhausting," or "We moms have to stick together." At first, I didn't say anything. I smiled. I nodded. I told myself it wasn't worth it. She was still grieving, and maybe those words gave her comfort. But deep down, something in me bristled, because when she said she understood, it didn't feel honest. She hadn't been there for the 3 a.m. feedings. She hadn't watched her body change and recover. She hadn't spent hours rocking a baby back and forth while crying quietly into the baby's blanket. She hadn't sat on the floor of the kitchen, surrounded by toys and crumbs, wondering if she was doing any of it right. Still, I kept it in, until one afternoon when we met at a cafe. Eli had kept me up all night, and I was barely holding it together. Livia looked at me and said, "Yeah, I remember those days. Being a mom is no joke." And I broke. I didn't mean to. The words just came out, tired and sharp. "Livia, you weren't a mom. You were pregnant, yes, but it's not the same." She froze. I instantly regretted it, but I didn't take it back. She stood up quietly, said she needed to go, and left. Later that night, one of our mutual friends called me. She said I had been cruel, that I had no idea how much Livia had been struggling, that to her, those 9 weeks were real. That child was real. I felt like I'd failed twice, once as a friend, and once as someone who should have known better. But part of me still wonders, was I wrong for drawing that line? I don't deny Livia's grief. I can't imagine how hard it must be to carry a dream and then lose it before it even had a chance. And maybe, to her, those weeks meant something that no one else could define. But to me, being a parent isn't just about carrying a child. It's about everything that comes after. The constant giving, the never-ending worry, the moments of joy laced with exhaustion. Maybe I was too blunt. Maybe I should have stayed quiet. But I guess I just couldn't keep pretending we were going through the same thing when we weren't. I want to be kind. I want to support her. But I also want to feel understood and not have my daily struggles dismissed as something she gets when she hasn't lived it. So now, I'm left wondering, Aita?
Brace yourself, because the update took a turn nobody saw coming.
I told myself that maybe some space would help. Maybe Livia just needed time to cool off, and then we could talk things through when we were both in a better headspace. But the silence didn't feel like cooling off. It felt like distance, a painful, growing distance between two people who used to share everything. After a few more days of overthinking and replaying that moment in my mind, I finally decided to write her a message. I didn't want to defend what I said. I didn't want to excuse it or sugarcoat it. I just wanted her to know that I was sorry, not because people told me I should be, but because I realized how deeply I had hurt someone who mattered to me. I told her I was tired that day, yes, but that wasn't the real reason. The truth was, I had been feeling overwhelmed and unseen for a long time. When she said, "I know what it's like," it triggered something in me. Not because I didn't believe she was grieving, but because I was desperate for someone to truly understand the chaos I live in every day as a mom. And in that desperation, I let my frustration turn into judgment. I told her I never wanted to take anything away from her. I never wanted to diminish her loss, or tell her she didn't matter as a mother in her own right. I realize now that motherhood looks different for everyone, and grief can make people cling to identities they barely got to touch. Maybe calling herself a mom was her way of keeping a piece of that dream alive. Livia responded the next afternoon. Her message was kind, but it was honest too. She said she appreciated the apology, but that my words had cut deeply. She said that losing the pregnancy had been the most painful thing she'd ever experienced, and that being pregnant, even for just 2 months, was real to her. She had already imagined the future, felt the changes in her body, dreamed of holding a baby she never got to meet. That, to her, was the beginning of motherhood. And when I told her she wasn't a mom, it felt like I was erasing the only connection she had left to that child. She said she hadn't been trying to compare her experience to mine, and maybe she worded things poorly, but she was trying to relate, to stay close to me. And hearing me say she wasn't a mom made her feel like an outsider in a space she had been trying to be part of, even if only in spirit. Reading her words made my heart ache. I replied again, this time not trying to explain anything, just listening, and thanking her for telling me the truth. We haven't made plans to meet up yet, and I don't know if things will ever go back to how they were.
You're not the villain here, but you're not totally blameless either. You're exhausted, stretched thin, and craving genuine understanding from someone who actually lives the daily grind of parenting. That's valid. It's brutal being a mom in the trenches, and it's natural to want empathy that matches your reality. But grief is complicated, messy, and intensely personal. For Olivia, pregnancy even brief was her entry point into motherhood, her own kind of heartbreak. Telling her she wasn't a mom dismissed a part of her identity she desperately clings to. That's why she felt hurt and pushed away. You both needed more honesty and patience, less bluntness. Instead of drawing sharp lines, maybe acknowledge the differences without negating either experience. Something like, "I see your pain, and it's different from mine, but I want to be here for you." Bottom line, you're not an AITA villain, but maybe a flawed human who said something harsh in a moment of exhaustion. Could have been gentler. Can't fault the honest frustration though. Relationships thrive on nuance and respect. Sounds like you're both still figuring that out, so no clear cut. AITA verdight's just a complicated mix of, "I get where you're coming from, and you could have handled that better." Keep the conversation open if you want to save this friendship, because cutting ties over pain doesn't heal anyone.
Story 3. Aita for refusing to let my girlfriend pick at my skin every night. Ever since the early days of our relationship, Jessa has had this habit. At night, when we're winding down, she asks to clean up my skin. She calls it picking or fixing what she calls little crumbs. At first, I didn't mind it. It felt like a strange form of affection, something gentle and focused, her way of caring. But over time, it started to hurt. She doesn't just gently touch my back or check a blemish here and there. She'll dig her fingers into places that sting. If I wince or flinch, she tells me to hold still. When I ask her softly to stop just for that one spot, she gets quiet, then frustrated, then angry that I've tried to compromise. I've offered to let her do it for a few minutes, or to skip the spots that hurt most, but she wants full control. And if I say no, even gently, the evening turns cold. She'll pull away, walk out of the room, and often end up sleeping on the couch. At first, I thought it was just a small thing, something we'd laugh about later, but it kept happening every night, and the reactions became more serious. Some nights, she'll say things like, "I don't know if I can keep doing this," or "Maybe I should go stay at my my sisters for a while. And the thing is, she says it with tears in her eyes. Like my refusal isn't just about a routine, but about love itself, that it's confusing. Because the next morning, everything resets. She'll kiss my forehead, bring me coffee, text me throughout the day with hearts and inside jokes. We talk about weekend plans, vacation ideas, maybe even getting a dog. We feel like a couple deeply in sync until night comes again. Then it starts all over. The question, the request, the expectation. And when I say no, because I'm in pain, or because I just want one night of rest, it feels like the entire mood of our home flips. I've asked her why it matters so much to her. She says it makes her feel close to me, that she gets anxious if she doesn't do it, that it's something she's always done in past relationships, and it helps her feel in control. I try to understand that. I really do. I know people have different ways of showing care, but I also believe boundaries matter. And if something causes me pain, even if it's small pain, I should be allowed to say no, without it turning into a question of whether our relationship is strong enough to survive. Sometimes, when she's really upset, I find myself thinking, maybe I should just let her do it. It's not that bad. But then I remember the stinging, the soreness, the way I have to hide how uncomfortable I am just to keep the peace. And I wonder, what kind of love requires silence like that? It feels so strange to say this is our only issue. Everything else is steady and kind, but this one thing has taken up so much space. It turns our quiet nights into tension, our cuddles into silence, our trust into guessing. I love her, truly, but I'm starting to feel like I'm being asked to trade my comfort for her calm. So I have to ask AITA for saying no, even if it breaks the rhythm of our nights.
I swear this update feels like it was written by a Hollywood screenwriter.
After another night where Jessa ended up sleeping on the couch, I finally sat down with her the next morning. I wasn't angry. I wasn't cold. I just told her quietly and clearly that something had to change. I said, I love you, but I need you to hear me when I say no. At first, she got defensive. She said it was how she showed love, that picking at my skin helped her feel close and settled, that I was pushing her away. But this time, I didn't try to fix it or soften my words. I just asked her one question. If I asked you to stop doing something that caused you pain, would you want me to keep doing it anyway just because it helped me feel better? She didn't answer right away. She just stared at the floor. Later, that evening, she came into the bedroom holding a small notebook. She sat next to me and told me she had been journaling, something her therapist recommended a long time ago, but she'd stopped doing. She admitted that her need to pick wasn't really about my skin. It was about anxiety, control, and a fear of losing connection when things felt too quiet. She said she was scared that if I stopped letting her do this one ritual, our closeness would fade, that maybe I'd stop needing her. That I held her hand and told her that love isn't about rituals. It's about respect. And I do need her, but not in a way that should come at the cost of my comfort or pain. Since then, we've made some changes. She started therapy again, this time with a focus on managing compulsive behaviors. And we've come up with a new evening routine, reading together, back rubs, sometimes just listening to music before bed. She still gets the urge to pick, and some nights are harder than others. But now she tells me when it hits, and I listen. And when I say, not tonight, she nods and doesn't argue that it's not perfect. But for the first time in months, I feel like we're both being heard, that I'm still learning how to speak up without guilt. She's learning how to feel secure without control, but we're trying together.
You are not the AITA. Saying no to pain isn't selfish, it's survival. You drew a boundary, not a battle line. What started as a quirky form of affection morphed into an emotional landmine, and instead of tiptoeing forever, you finally spoke up. She hurting too? Absolutely. But love that hinges on compliance isn't intimacy, it's imbalance. You didn't scream, accuse, or mock. You calmly asked to be heard. That's not cruelty, that's maturity. Her response, eventually, was growth, therapy, alternatives, listening. Bottom line, you're not a villain for needing peace in your own skin. You stood up without stepping on her. That's love with a backbone. So no, you're not the a-hole. You're the adult in the room.
Story 4.
AITA for cutting ties with my dad after years of neglect. Growing up, my dad, Martin, was never really there. When he was around, it wasn't for me. He spent most of his time focused on his own things, and somehow, cigarettes were one of his biggest priorities. I remember him going out in the middle of family dinners just to have a smoke. Sometimes, I thought I mattered less than those breaks. As I got older, his behavior got worse. He wasn't just distant. He became angry, loud. I learned to flinch when his voice rose, to hide when the yelling started. He would lock me in my room during arguments, punishing me for things like not sharing his interests or not being good enough in his eyes. I was scared to make mistakes, scared to be myself. When he had girlfriends, things would soften a little. He wasn't as harsh, but I always felt like a secret he wanted to keep away from the world. I tried warning those women about how he treated me, but they never believed me. Maybe they thought I was exaggerating. Maybe they wanted to believe the man I barely recognized. Then, in March last year, he got sick, a lung infection. He immediately blamed me, said I was the cause because I'd visited his place a few few weeks before. I felt crushed, like maybe he was right and I had somehow hurt him. But when I talked to my mom, she told me something I already suspected: his smoking was probably the real cause. That was the last straw. I confronted him. I told him how exhausted I was, how unfair it had all been. Instead of listening, he called me dramatic, pathetic, and useless. It hurt, but I wasn't surprised. I told him I hated him, that he had never been a father to me. Then I stopped answering his calls. I stopped showing up. I cut all contact. Since then, I've been fighting a quiet battle. Sometimes, when I think about everything, the pain feels unbearable. I've hurt myself a few times, just enough to feel something other than the ache inside. It's a secret I carry alone, because I'm scared of what might happen if anyone finds out. I hardly talk about this with my mom, either. When we argue, she sometimes threatens to send me back to my dad. That scares me more than anything. I don't think she understands how deep this fear runs, or what it's doing to me. Sometimes, I wonder if any of this is my fault. If maybe I could have done something different. If I'm just being too sensitive. If cutting him out was wrong. I'm not sure. But I do know that living in fear and pain wasn't living at all. I don't have the answers yet, but I hope one day I'll find a way to heal. For now, I'm just trying to keep going.
Hold on to your socks, because the update just blew the roof off.
After I posted, something unexpected happened. A girl from my class, someone I never thought paid much attention to me, pulled me aside and said, "I think I read something you wrote." At first, I panicked. I thought I had been exposed. But instead, she said it felt familiar, and that she had been through something kind of like it. That conversation made me feel less alone. For the first time, I didn't have to explain everything. She just understood. I also started seeing the school counselor, quietly. I still haven't told my mom. I'm not ready for that yet, but the counselor helped me understand that what I went through wasn't my fault, that the pain I carry is real, and that self-harming isn't weakness. It's a signal that I need help, not punishment. We haven't talked about reconnecting with my dad, and honestly, I don't think I want to, at least not now. But I've started writing letters to him that I never send, just to say the things I never could before. It helps, even if he never reads them.
You are not the AITA, not even close. Surviving mistreatment isn't bad behavior. Protecting your peace isn't betrayal. Refusing to answer cruelty with silence isn't drama, it's courage. Your father didn't show up for you. Not emotionally, not lovingly, not even humanely. You didn't burn a bridge. You dodged a collapsing one. The hurt, that's real. The self-blame, misplaced. You didn't break anything. You've been carrying broken pieces your whole life now. You're slowly building something stronger. Talking to someone, letting someone in, writing what you never could say. That's not weakness. That's healing. In motion, you're not the problem. You're the survivor. Keep going. Keep choosing yourself. You're not too sensitive. You're finally safe enough to feel.
Story 5. AITA for not meeting my partner's engagement expectations. We met just before I started a full-time university program. It's a pretty demanding course, the kind that expects more than just lectures and essays, labs, fieldwork, weekend meetings. On top of that, I've been working full-time hours to support myself. Nadine has also been studying. She's in the final stretch of her master's degree, and she's just as busy as I am. But despite the chaos, we've always tried to make time for each other. We're currently planning our wedding. The budget we set is £25,000. We live in London, so that amount barely stretches as far as it would in other places. Neither of our parents are in a position to help financially, so everything comes down to us. Our savings, our choices, our compromises that I've tried to carry most of the financial weight when it comes to day-to-day things. I usually pay for dates, small trips, takeout nights, things like that. But lately, I've had to slow down. I've been funneling every spare pound into the wedding fund, bills, and my final year expenses. Nadine's been understanding for the most part, but cracks have started to show. Last month, we began planning our engagement party. We both agreed early on that we didn't want to go overboard. It would just be a small gathering, something to mark the moment with our closest friends and family. But then, Nadine asked for a professional photographer at first. I didn't think much of it. But when I checked our budget, I realized even a basic photography package would eat into funds we had set aside for the actual wedding. I told her, gently, that we couldn't afford it right now. She was quiet at first, but then told me she felt like she wasn't being prioritized. She said I didn't value her the way I should, that she'd imagined this part of her life for years, and now that it was finally happening, it felt flat. She even brought up the proposal. That one hurt. I had proposed in Spain. We were staying in a small town near the coast. I'd arranged for a violinist to play one of her favorite classical pieces while we stood on a hotel balcony at sunset. I even built a little flower arch out of faux roses and paper vines. The "Will you marry me?" sign I had made was supposed to flip down smoothly from a hidden hinge, but it got stuck, then snapped down crooked. We both laughed at the time. She said it was so us, awkward and sweet, but now she said it felt like I hadn't put enough care into it. it. Like it was thrown together without thought. That's what stung the most. Because I had tried. I had spent weeks planning. Every little detail had come from my heart. I was working 2 jobs during that time and barely sleeping. But I wanted to make it special for her. Now, she sees that moment as proof that I don't care enough, that I tried to explain where I was coming from, that I wanted to give her everything, that I'm doing my best. But I think she's hurt in a way I don't fully understand. Maybe she's been dreaming of this phase of life for so long, of celebrations, photos, the whole fairy tale, and the reality just feels more practical and less magical than she imagined. That I'm not angry at her. I think she's allowed to want more. I'm just scared that no matter how much I give, it will never feel like enough to her. And part of me wonders, am I really doing something wrong? Or is this just what happens when love meets reality?
Forget everything you thought you knew. The update rewrote the whole story.
After our argument, there was a tension between us that didn't go away overnight. We weren't fighting, but we weren't laughing either. We moved around each other like we were both afraid to cause more harm. One evening, Nadine came home from her placement late. I was sitting at the kitchen table, going over some numbers again. Without saying anything, she sat across from me and asked me to close the laptop. I did. She told me she had been thinking, and that maybe she hadn't been fair, that she had put too much weight on the symbolism of things, the proposal, the photographer, even the tone of the party, and not enough on what those things actually meant. She admitted that she had built an image of what engagement should look like based on what she saw online or heard from friends, and when ours didn't line up, it felt like a disappointment. But she also said something that surprised me. She said, "I've been so focused on the story we're supposed to tell everyone, I forgot about the one we're living." Then she told me she went back and looked at the photo we took on the balcony after the sign fell, and we laughed. It wasn't staged or perfect. We looked tired. The arch was crooked, but we looked happy. Real. That night, she hugged me for a long time and said she was proud of what we were building. That maybe it wasn't glossy or filtered, but it was honest. And ours that we decided not to hire the photographer. Instead, her cousin, who does photography as a hobby, offered to take pictures. As a gift, she said she'd rather have imperfect photos with real memories than perfect ones with fake smiles.
You're not a villain, you're a human juggling boulders with a smile. You communicated, sacrificed, and genuinely tried. Nadine's feelings were real, but so was your effort. Her disappointment stemmed more from unmet expectations than actual neglect. The fantasy didn't match the finances, but your love did the heavy lifting. And when she realized that, she came back with grace. Here's my take. You both tripped into a mirror showing what happens when Instagram romance crashes into Excel spreadsheets. But instead of breaking it, you built something stronger. So no, you're not the AITA with filters.
Story 6.
AITA for finally calling out my manager during a busy shift. I work the evening shifts, usually 4 p.m. to midnight. It's not glamorous, but I like the rhythm of it. I get along with most of the team. We're not best friends or anything, but we know how to cover for each other when it gets hectic. That kind of thing matters in a kitchen. The issue started with my manager, Ben. He's been around longer than anyone else. Technically, he's not the general manager, but he acts like it. He oversees everything from the bar to the prep station. He likes control. He doesn't yell or throw things, but he makes it clear that whatever he says goes, even if it doesn't make sense. Most nights, I take my break around 8:30 or 9 o'clock, depending on the dinner rush. Ben knows this. It's the only consistent part of my shift. I usually grab something light, sit in the back hallway near the dry storage, and just breathe for 15 minutes. One night last week, we were slammed. The kitchen printer was nonstop, and 2 servers had called out, so I was already juggling a lot. Around 9 p.m., I told the line I was stepping off for my break. I checked with Emma, our floor lead, and she gave me the green light. But just as I was clocking out, Ben appeared from the office and said flatly, "You can't go. I need my break now." I just stared at him. We had never once discussed him taking a break during the rush. He usually eats after close. I said, "Emma just said it's fine." He didn't even look at her. He said, "Well, I'm your superior. I'm going." At that moment, something in me snapped, not in an angry, aggressive way, just tired. Tired of constantly being the one who adjusted, the one who skipped breaks when others couldn't handle pressure, the one who picked up slack without a thank you. I said, as calmly as I could, "Ben, this happens every time I try to take 5 minutes. You always say you need something, but when you're in the office for 30 minutes on your phone, no one questions you. Why is it different when I need a breather?" He rolled his eyes and muttered something like, "Don't start this now." But I kept going. People notice. I'm not the only one. The kitchen talks. The servers talk. I've covered your tasks more times than I can count while you disappear. I'm not trying to be difficult. I just want the same respect. The room was quiet. Even the dishwasher stopped for a second. happened. He didn't yell. He didn't argue. He just walked back into the office and shut the door. I took my break. 5 minutes. Then I went right back to the line and kept working. Later that night, I found out from another coworker that Ben had vented to the owner about me being disrespectful and out of line. I haven't heard anything officially, but I'm expecting a meeting soon. Now, I'm wondering, ATA for finally speaking up?
The update walked in like, let me ruin your piece real quick.
So, a lot has happened since that night. The day after the shift with Ben, I got called into a meeting with the owner, Rachel. She's usually not around during closing shifts, so it surprised me when she asked me to come in early. I was nervous walking in. I honestly thought I was going to be written up or even fired. But instead of scolding me, Rachel asked me calmly to tell her what happened. In my own words, I kept it simple. I told her everything. How I've been handling most of the evening responsibilities, how Ben often disappears during critical moments, how I've tried to stay professional but felt disrespected. I didn't try to make myself look like a hero. I just told the truth. She listened the entire time without interrupting. When I finished, she nodded slowly and said, "You're not the first person to bring this up. I just needed to hear it from someone who's always been steady." Then she told me that Ben had filed a complaint saying I was insubordinate and created a hostile work environment. But she didn't sound convinced. She said she's noticed morale dipping during Ben's shifts and wanted to look into it further. I went back to work that evening like usual, but over the next week, things started to shift. Emma told me Rachel began quietly asking other team members about Ben's leadership. Several people shared their own experiences, how he takes long breaks, avoids conflict resolution, and pushes tasks on others during rush hours. I didn't ask them to do that. They just stepped up. Then last night, Rachel posted a new schedule. It listed me as acting night manager for the next month. No mention of Ben, just my name. Later, I heard Ben was moved to mornings, where the workload is lighter and the pressure is different. He hasn't spoken to me since. It's been a weird few days. Part of me feels relieved. Another part feels a little sad. I never wanted to take anyone's place. I just wanted fairness. But for the first time, I feel like my voice actually mattered. And maybe I wasn't out of line after all. Still wondering if I was the AH, but now I'm a little more okay if I was.
You are not the AITA. You were the thermometer in a kitchen that needed a temperature check. You didn't explode, sabotage, or grandstand. You stated facts calmly, directly, while covered in fryer grease and steam, no less. That's not mute professionalism with a spine. Ben played boss without earning loyalty. You, on the other hand, led by showing up, grinding, and finally speaking what everyone else had been swallowing. And surprise, turns out people actually listen when you don't. Bark, but balance. You didn't cause drama. You clarified the standard. Now you're wearing the apron with the authority to match. No, you're not the you're just the one who finally called order up on unfairness. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your favorite story in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, you'll definitely want to check out AITA for saying no to my wife's plan to move her dad in with us. Click now to watch the full story.